Hi everybody, welcome to another Connect Group series. I am joined here today with Pastor Steve Graham, and we are going to be talking a little bit about what it means to live our faith outside of church, in our workplaces, in our families, in our sports clubs, the outworking of faith. Yeah. And something we're talking about, Steve, was that scripture in John 17 where Jesus says we are in this world, but we are not of this world. What does that kind of scripture mean to you? Where do we go?
Well, I think it's a unique perspective that Jesus has, that we're actually not living our faith just around church. And I love the fact, in Equippers, we say we're equipping people for life. Mm-hmm. So it's not just about equipping people for church. And my experience has been like, we talk a lot about these heartbeats of honor and excellence and stuff. They actually equip you for life. They're not a strategy how to do church well. They actually equip you to do life well. Yeah. And, we often say everyone's called to be planted in the church, but 90% of us, our vocation's not church. Most of our life's not church. It's one thing to live those out in church. It's another thing to go, how do I live that out in my sports club, in my workplace, in my university? And, that's the vision and that's the call of Jesus. Hey, I want you to be in these places, but not of them, carrying a different attitude into those places.
Yeah, so in other words, we're not to fully embrace the culture of those places, but we're actually to bring some of the culture of those heartbeats into workplace, into lifestyle, wherever that might be.
Yeah, and so one of our axioms is kingdom works anywhere. Yeah. It's not just for church, it's precisely for those other places. So yeah, I think that's really important. And, I love the fact that God has given us the scripture as a resource. And there's actually one particular section in the Old Testament that's really helpful for this. Mm-hmm. It's when the Jews were carried into exile in Babylon. Okay. So, there's a famous passage in Jeremiah about, settle there, build houses, have families. But there's a whole book that we're going to look at, the book of Daniel, which is all about what do I do when I'm a follower of God, a person of God, put in the midst of a system and an organization that's different. How do I live faithfully? How do I live well in those places? And Daniel's a great picture of that.
Yeah, because Daniel went somewhere pretty radical. He went from his Jewish upbringing and everything he knew to a culture that was not just a little bit different. It was radically different.
And if you read Daniel chapter 1, it actually starts with Nebuchadnezzar destroyed his capital city, destroyed his nation, takes them away in exile. And then verse 3, it just says he commissions, that to find some of the best of these young Jewish royal family and bring them in. It says he was to teach them the language and literature of the Babylonians. They were to be trained for 3 years, and after that they were to enter the king's service. And I was actually looking at this. He actually did it for a long time. He served 5 different kings.
Wow.
He really nailed it. How do you be in a system, an organization that's not of his faith and values, but how you flourish in there, and the challenges, the mindsets, the values that he took into those places, and he did really well at it.
Because anybody can do it for a few moments. Anyone can do it for a week. How do you have an idea? I'm asking you off the top, but 5 kings. How do you think? How long would that have been? Do you know?
Oh well, some commentators say he was there for most of the 70 years of their exile.
Wow.
Like a long, successful life.
And there's no indication from Scripture that he really ever failed in his service to God in that time.
But he had some really big challenges, and that's what we're going to talk about the next few weeks. How do you navigate some of those challenges of, I'm called to work in this big organization, this government department, this football club, but where do I fit in? Where do I say no? What are my values? And welcome to the world of Christian discipleship,
where we really work it out.
Yeah.
So going back to our heartbeats, one of our heartbeats is the heartbeat of excellence.
Yeah.
And excellence doesn't mean to be perfect, but it means to give our very, very best to whatever God puts us to. And so, going to Daniel, that was one of the things that he's renowned for.
And actually, for our heartbeat, we use the verse from Daniel.
Yes.
So it says Daniel chapter 5. Inasmuch as an excellent spirit is found in Daniel. And then Daniel 6:3, the next chapter just repeats it again. Daniel distinguished himself above the governors because an excellent spirit was in him, and the king gave thought to setting him over the whole realm.
Yeah.
And it's like he had something about who he was that he just didn't survive. He actually flourished in there.
Yeah.
But it was something that he brought into that place. Like, yeah, I'm called to work in this place. I'm part of this football club. I'm part of this uni, but I'm going to carry something into this environment. And so that's really what you want to study the book of Daniel for, to understand what that was about him.
Yeah. So he carried a spirit of excellence. He's in a culture that is completely which has destroyed his culture he's come from. So he's got heart issues going on.
Yeah.
By the way, we don't seem to read about those, but presumably he's got inner turmoil. Man, maybe he hated those guys for a while. We don't know. It doesn't say that, but somehow, despite that, because of the excellence he lived with, he was distinguished and he thrived in that environment.
He actually managed at one point to talk about, like, he's like, man, I really care for this leader, this king. But then on the other hand, he's like, I'm not going to sell my soul to this place. And there's certain things you want me to do, I won't do. And there's certain things you don't want me to do, I'm going to keep doing them of my faith. But overall, they're like, man, this guy's too good to lose.
Yes.
Like, he's a real asset to our organization.
Yeah.
And you know, I mentioned Daniel 6 verse 3 about this excellent spirit. The next verse kind of unpacks it a bit, because it said it generated opposition. They were out to take him out to other people because they were jealous of him. And it just says the chief ministers tried to find grounds for charges against Daniel, but they were unable to do so. Like, I think Rick Warren says, live in a way that people have to make things up to get you. And Daniel was like that. Like, they literally couldn't find anything. And so it says this, they could find no corruption in him because he was trustworthy in this, neither corrupt nor negligent.
Wow.
Like, he's kind of lives with integrity, with character, with diligence. Like, he doesn't veer off and he doesn't neglect things. He's like, he just something pretty incredible in a system, in an organization that didn't reflect his values. Yes. So I'm just going to be who I am.
Yeah.
I'm going to live integrity because this is important to me. And he seemed to nail it.
And so there he is. He's living in that place. He's living with great character, integrity of heart, with an excellent spirit. And because of that, it provoked people to come against him. Yeah. But because of the excellence, because of the integrity, they found nothing against him. And that's helpful, encouraging for us to know, because if we actually live God's way, we will have some people who won't like it. Yeah. But I love the fact, because he lived with excellence, not only was he promoted, but actually he brought something of value, let's call it, to his organization or to his culture that was recognized. It was like, no, this guy's good. Like, man, I know you guys don't like him, but how he lives, how he is serving this nation, man, we can't find anything wrong with him. That's pretty encouraging.
Yeah, and doorways of opportunity open for him, because the main leader's like, we need this guy.
Yeah.
He's awesome. And I think, it comes back to that thing of, like, in Equippers, we talk about the heartbeats and go, oh, these are not strategies for how to grow church. Like, these are strategies how to do life well. And I think, we go to Daniel as the go-to guy for excellence, but we can go through them all. Honor. How do you treat people with respect wherever you are? If you're working as a waiter, if you're in a football club, like, do you just treat people well? Right. Do you bring excellence? We talk about advance through serving. Do people sense like, man, you've given yourself to see this organization advance? Bring a servant heart. You're willing to do whatever it takes, not just for church, but work, whatever. We have a value, reach out. It's like, do you reach out to newcomers? Do you reach out to outsiders? New person starting at work, new person on the team. He's the guy, she's the woman that will always bring them in. And I think, the together one, we're committed to team. Like, no, we don't get into toxic cultures at work or in uni or whatever. We're not into backbiting. We're not into gossip. We seek to encourage people. We like, man, this person's great. They're a team player. And you just go, these heartbeats, like that all together is an excellent spirit that's going to serve you well wherever you are.
Yeah, and I think, even as a parent, like with what we try to teach our kids, that kind of looking through those heartbeats as a way of teaching them is amazing. So recently, in our youngest daughter's class, there's been some new kids come. Yeah. They've joined quite late. Yeah. We've had some kids from Ukraine come and join the school. Yeah. And so our question to her is, are you going the extra mile to make sure, this young girl is felt included and it's hard for her, it's not her first language, all this kind of stuff, and it's a great way of saying, man, this works for them as well as it works for the whole.
And this is not just what we do at church. This is for all of life, and particularly for those places where God has sent us into. Yeah. Like, I want to carry this excellent spirit like Daniel did.
So good. Well, then we're going to finish it there for today, and we're going to continue talking about Daniel a little bit over the next couple of weeks. So you might want to read a bit of the book of Daniel and read about some of the challenges he went through. But for tonight, I think a great thing to do would be to take those heartbeats and just for a few minutes talk about them and what do they look like, not just in a church context, but what do they look like in your workplace? What do they look like in your family? What do they look like in your sports club? What do they look like in your social setting? So enjoy talking about that tonight.